Smash that subscribe button right now because what I'm about to tell you is the most explosive, most controversial, most absolutely earth-shattering scandal to hit professional tennis in decades. We're talking about a rising superstar taking the entire WTA to court. We're talking about match-fixing allegations, leaked internal documents proving a cover-up, and a legal battle that literally changed the sport forever. This isn't just drama. This is a full-blown war between one brave player and the most powerful organization in women's tennis. And by the time this story is over, nothing in tennis will ever be the same again. Eala, the Filipino tennis sensation who has been taking the sport by storm, did something that most players would never dare to do. She sued the WTA. Not for some minor dispute or contract issue. She sued them for what her legal team called nothing short of robbery. A match that was supposed to celebrate her talent and showcase her incredible skills turned into an absolute nightmare that exposed the dark, corrupt underbelly of professional tennis. What went down on that court in Luxembourg wasn't just controversial or unfortunate. It was downright scandalous, and the evidence that came out during the legal proceedings proved that the WTA knew exactly what they were doing. Let me take you back to the beginning of this story, because understanding where Eala came from makes what she did even more remarkable. The name Eala was buzzing in tennis inner circles long before the average fan even knew she existed. Born in the Philippines, she carried the weight of an entire nation's tennis dreams on her shoulders from the moment she picked up a racket. By the time she captured that US Open junior title at just 17 years old, making history as the first Filipino player to ever do so, it wasn't just a personal victory. It was a declaration to the entire world that the Philippines had arrived in professional tennis. All of Southeast Asia was locked in and watching her every move. While the Philippines erupted in absolute joy and national pride, Alex was just starting the brutal, unforgiving transition from amateur prodigy to the professional circuit. We've all seen how that pressure destroys promising careers. Young players who dominate the juniors get to the pros and completely crumble under the weight of expectations. But the stakes for Eala were even higher because she wasn't just representing herself. She was representing an entire country, an entire region, millions of people who had never had someone to cheer for at this level. The margin for error was basically zero. But here's the thing that makes Eala special. She didn't flinch under that pressure. She ground through opponents, survived brutal qualifiers, fought off injuries that would have ended other careers, and clawed her way up the rankings one hard-fought win at a time. Every loss was a lesson she learned from. Every setback made her stronger. And by early 2025, she was knocking on the door of the top 50, primed and ready for a major breakout moment. Then came the Luxembourg Open, a standard 250-level tournament that was supposed to be her springboard to the next level of her career. Even though she was pitted against a higher-ranked rival, she felt locked in, focused, and secure. Her team had total faith in her abilities. The Filipino fans who had traveled all the way to Luxembourg to see her play were absolutely certain she would win. This was meant to be her moment, a chance to prove once and for all that she belonged with the elite players in the world and that her junior success was no fluke. She stepped onto that court with eyes like lasers and the kind of hunger you only develop after years of sacrifice. She delivered crisp first serves. Her ground strokes were absolute sniper shots, precise and powerful. She was playing the tennis of her life, and for a brief, beautiful moment, everything seemed to be going exactly according to plan. But in professional tennis, nothing is ever guaranteed. And what happened next changed the script completely. It shifted everything not just for Eala personally, but for the entire sport of tennis itself. The first set was absolutely electric, with Eala mixing power and precision to completely toy with her opponent. She moved the other player around the court like a chess piece, dictating every point, controlling every rally. She took the first set 6-4 while Philippine flags waved in the stands and the crowd went absolutely wild. Social media was already lighting up with highlights and reactions. This was the Eala everyone had been waiting to see, the complete player who could dominate at the professional level. But the second set is where the wheels started to come off in the most suspicious way possible. It started with a call that looked incredibly shady from the very beginning. Eala ripped a shot that kissed the baseline, clearly in by any objective measure, but the line judge immediately called it out. Alex stared at the mark on the clay court, her brow furrowed in confusion, but she kept her mouth shut and her composure intact, saving the fight for when it would really matter. Then it happened again. And again. Every close call, every near miss seemed to suspiciously go against her. In the fifth game of the second set, Eala smashed what looked like an absolute clear winner down the line. The crowd gasped because everyone in the stadium could see it was definitely in. But the call came down loud and clear. Eala froze mid-celebration, a mix of disbelief and genuine annoyance washing over her face before she marched up to the chair umpire to point out the mark on the court. Her tone was firm but controlled. The ball was good. The mark is right there on the court. You can see it. The referee barely even glanced at the evidence sitting right in front of him and let the terrible call stand, forcing Eala to use one of her precious challenges. The slow-motion replay showed what everyone in the stadium already knew. The ball had clipped the line. It was clearly in. The call was overturned, sure, but the damage was already done to her rhythm and her mental state. Her focus was shattered, and the disturbing pattern continued throughout the set. By the middle of the second set, it felt like Eala was battling more than just her opponent across the net. She was battling the officials, battling the system itself. Every single crucial decision went the other way. An ace that should have given her a break point was ignored. A serve that clearly touched the net cord had no let called. Even the commentators calling the match were starting to notice the obvious bias in the officiating. The crowd began to whisper and murmur with growing anger. Eala started to unravel mentally, eventually losing the second set 3-6. It wasn't just the sting of losing the set that burned. It was the cruel, unfair manner in which it unfolded. By the time the third set rolled around, the air in the stadium was thick enough to choke on. Eala tried desperately to lock back in, forcing herself to tune out the crowd noise and the controversy and just play tennis, but the cracks in her game were already showing. She was visibly rattled, her body language betraying her frustration. Her opponent smelled blood in the water and seized the momentum, hammering away at every weakness in Eala's game. The breaking point came in the third set with Eala trailing 4-5. Match point. The most crucial moment of the entire match. Eala served, and her opponent's return sailed deep, painfully obviously deep. It was clearly long by a significant margin. Eala threw her hands up in relief, ready to fight for deuce and extend the match. But the silence from the chair umpire was absolutely deafening. The line judge called it in. The return was ruled good. Eala stood completely frozen in shock and disbelief. That ball had missed the baseline by at least 3 inches. You could see the mark on the clay. The crowd didn't just gasp. They erupted in absolute fury, screaming at the officials, demanding justice. Desperate and on the verge of tears, Eala approached the net and pleaded with the official in a voice breaking with emotion. "You have to check that mark. Please, just look at it. It's right there." The umpire didn't budge. No electronic review available. Just a cold stare and a dismissive shake of the head. No second chances. Game, set, match. It was over. Getting up from her chair after that moment felt like lifting a mountain. Eala stared one last time at the mark on the clay court, physical proof of what the whole world had just witnessed, evidence of what everyone knew had just happened. With her head bowed in defeat and humiliation, she walked to her bench, packed her bag in complete silence, and turned her back on the court. But something inside her had snapped. And it wasn't just her composure or her heart. This wasn't just a tough loss that she could learn from and move past. This felt like a robbery, like something had been stolen from her. And the response wouldn't be a tantrum or an emotional outburst. It would be a legal bombshell that would send shockwaves through the entire sport of tennis. In the post-match press conference, Eala shed no tears. There was no screaming, no wild finger-pointing or accusations. She sat behind the microphone radiating a quiet, simmering intensity that was far more intimidating than any emotional outburst could have been. Her words were measured and precise. "I showed up today to compete. I came here for a fair fight. What happened out there today was anything but fair. I'm not accusing my opponent of anything. She played her game and did what she had to do. but I have never witnessed officiating this incompetent in my entire career, and frankly, I hope I never do again." Her words were calm and controlled, but the underlying rage was absolutely palpable to everyone in that room. When a reporter asked her point-blank if she felt cheated, she paused for a long beat. She took a deep breath, clearly choosing her words carefully, then delivered a line that would echo across the tennis world for months. "Every athlete deserves to have their hard work respected. Mine wasn't respected today." Within hours of that press conference, the clip was everywhere. Millions of people watched the replay of the controversial calls. Tennis analysts went to work breaking down the match frame by frame, proving beyond any doubt that multiple egregious errors had been made. Legends of the game couldn't stay silent about what they had witnessed. Martina Navratilova tweeted, "We've seen bad calls before, but this is egregious. The players deserve so much better than this." Billie Jean King called for immediate reform of the officiating system. The hashtag Justice for Eala started trending globally across every social media platform. But the reaction wasn't entirely uniform or supportive. Some defended the officials, arguing that human error is just part of the game and that Eala should accept the defeat with grace and dignity. Others pointed out that she'd had opportunities to challenge calls earlier in the match and had failed to use her challenges strategically. The tennis community was torn down the middle, sparking fierce debates across every platform imaginable. Filipino fans were particularly vocal and passionate, rallying behind their national star who they felt had been blatantly sabotaged on the world stage. The WTA's social media channels were absolutely flooded with protest videos, online petitions, and calls for total boycotts. The pressure was mounting not just on the specific umpires involved, but on the entire governing body of women's tennis. Just as the controversy seemed to be fading into the background of the sport's news cycle, just when people thought this would be another case of bad officiating that everyone would forget about, Eala's legal team dropped an absolute nuclear option. This wasn't a lawsuit born of raw emotion or pettiness or hurt feelings. It was cold, calculated, methodical, and extremely dangerous to the WTA establishment. She wasn't suing for defamation or emotional distress. Her lawyers described what happened as gross negligence resulting in lost opportunity and significant financial damages. The language used in the legal filing was aggressive and uncompromising. 4 weeks, headlines screamed, "Match theft," and Eala versus the WTA across every sports publication. Few players in history would dare to challenge the establishment so brazenly, risking their entire career in the process. But Eala isn't like most players. And what her legal team uncovered during their investigation was far more disturbing than anyone expected or could have imagined. When the lawsuit was officially filed with the Court of Arbitration for Sport, the details made the entire tennis world collectively gasp. This went far beyond a single bad call or human error. Eala's lawyers had built an absolutely watertight case with devastating evidence. Their central argument was devastatingly simple and impossible to refute. They argued that the WTA had failed its contractual duty to ensure fair play by deliberately refusing to implement available officiating technology that could have prevented these errors. The complaint emphasized that Hawkeye systems, the electronic line calling technology that has become standard in professional tennis, were readily available and should have been mandatory for a tournament of that caliber. Yet the organizers of the Luxembourg Open had chosen to cut costs and save money, leaving certain courts without any technological safeguards whatsoever. Despite Eala's rising star power and the significant implications of the match, she was relegated to an outer court with zero electronic assistance. But the evidence got significantly worse. Eala's legal team presented shocking documentation regarding the specific officiating crew assigned to that particular court. They alleged a disturbing pattern of incompetence among the line judges and especially the chair umpire selected for the match. The match official in question had a track record of controversial calls that stretched back years across multiple tournaments. Internal emails that were unearthed during the legal discovery process proved beyond doubt that the WTA had previously flagged this specific crew for repeated incompetence and poor judgment. Yet bafflingly, inexplicably, they were still assigned to officiate high-stakes matches with serious consequences. The lawsuit alleged that this wasn't simply an unfortunate mistake or oversight. This was a deliberate pattern of gross negligence that directly cost Eala the match, her ranking points, and her future earning potential. The legal team actually put a specific dollar amount on the devastation. They calculated the immediate loss of prize money, the disappearance of performance bonuses, and the sponsorship deals that evaporated the moment her ranking stalled and her momentum was destroyed. But the real dynamite, the evidence that would ultimately force the WTA to completely cave, was the paper trail discovered in communications between the association and the tournament organizers. Text message chains revealed a dirty little secret that the WTA had been desperately trying to hide. There was active pressure from WTA management to churn through matches on the outer courts at breakneck speed, likely to avoid any time-consuming video reviews that would slow down the schedule. Fairness protocols and proper officiating were viewed as annoying speed bumps getting in the way of efficiency. One text message from a tournament official bluntly stated, "We need these courts cleared by 6 p.m. Keep the line moving no matter what." Another message discussed deliberately avoiding the use of technology to prevent delays and challenges that slow everything down. Eala's lead attorney dropped a soundbite during a press conference that immediately splashed across every major sports publication in the world. This isn't about one blown call or human error. This is about a systemic failure to protect the athletes who are the lifeblood of this sport. When an organization prioritizes the tournament schedule over fair competition, when they knowingly deploy referees with documented checkered pasts, and when they deliberately deny players access to technology that ensures fairness, that is not an accident or oversight. That is a calculated choice. And Alex Eala is standing up to say that choice is completely unacceptable. The term match theft wasn't used lightly or for dramatic effect. It was calculated and designed to shift the entire narrative from tough break to institutional corruption. And it worked perfectly. Suddenly this wasn't just one player's complaint or grievance. The spotlight turned intensely to whether the WTA was actually doing enough to preserve the sport's basic integrity. The lawsuit demanded financial compensation, certainly, but more importantly it demanded a complete revolution in how the sport operated. Mandatory Hawkeye systems for every single WTA event without exception. Better oversight and accountability for officials. Transparent grievance channels for players. A total rethinking of how human judgment and digital technology should coexist on the professional tour. Alex Eala hadn't just filed a complaint. She had fired the opening shot in a war that would fundamentally change women's tennis forever. The WTA's initial response was exactly what you'd expect from a massive corporate entity in full crisis mode. Guarded, politically smooth, and incredibly defensive. Their official statement read like a corporate template written by lawyers. The WTA is dedicated to fair play and the highest standards of officiating. While we understand the frustration of a close loss, we stand by the integrity of our officials and our processes. Translation: we admit absolutely nothing and we will fight you in court. But behind the scenes, panic was absolutely setting in. Sponsors were blowing up phone lines demanding answers. Broadcast partners were asking extremely tough questions about integrity and fairness. And most importantly, in locker rooms around the world, other players were starting to share their own horror stories of bad calls and suspicious officiating. The lawsuit had kicked open the floodgates of complaints that had been building for years, and the WTA was struggling desperately to plug all the leaks. Big names in tennis immediately rallied behind Eala's cause. Angelique Kerber tweeted, "Every player has felt this burn at some point. It's time we finally did something about it." Coco Gauff dropped an entire video essay discussing why relying on human error in the age of perfect technology is completely obsolete. The debate was raging as intensely as any match. Then the dam broke completely. Someone deep inside the WTA, a whistleblower whose identity remains unknown to this day, leaked explosive internal files to a sports journalist. The documents were absolutely damning and proved everything Eala had been saying. The WTA had conducted a secret post-match review and had actually confirmed that multiple catastrophic officiating errors had occurred during Eala's match. That internal report didn't just acknowledge fault. It recommended disciplinary action for the officials involved and outlined specific changes to prevent this nightmare from ever happening again. But the public never saw that report. The WTA had deliberately buried it deep while publicly defending their officials and fighting Eala in court. When the truth surfaced, the backlash was instantaneous and absolutely ferocious. The WTA was completely backed into a corner with nowhere to hide. Weeks after the leak set the internet on fire, the WTA finally broke their silence with a new statement that shocked everyone. After a comprehensive review, we acknowledge that significant errors were made during the officiating of the match in question. Furthermore, we admit that our initial response to the players' concerns was woefully inadequate. We are committed to doing better. It was an unprecedented admission of guilt. They announced sweeping reforms. Every single WTA tournament would now be required to implement Hawkeye technology. No exceptions. They formed an independent oversight committee including player representatives. The lawsuit was quietly settled out of court with Eala receiving a significant payout and an official apology. Eala is back on court now, playing better than ever, but her legacy extends far beyond tennis results. She fought for every player coming up behind her. She refused to stay silent when injustice happened. And she literally changed the sport forever. If this story inspired you, if it made you believe that one person can actually make a difference, then smash that like button and subscribe right now. Drop a comment and tell me, was Eala right to sue, or should she have just accepted the loss? Share this with everyone who loves justice and refuses to back down. This is what happens when courage meets